Agatha Christie, Edogawa Rampo, Chen Haji, or perhaps a story you might stumble upon online. Tonight we'll use animation of diverse styles to revisit these suspenseful and thrilling masterpieces. I wonder if it will send a chill down your spine or be more of an extreme brain burner. Alright detectives, get ready. Presented by Blooming Enoki Mushroom, Akimura's Bizarre Space Detective Stephen, Guji Theater's Completely Uninhibited Yan Boss, and Fan's Strange Tales Tavern. I had just finished work, and I was sitting on a park bench, smoking a cigarette to relax. After a while, an old man slowly walked towards me. He looked like a scavenger. A young man who doesn't work hard will regret it in his old age. That's what he seemed to be saying. He walked over and sat on the bench opposite me. He stared at me with a strange expression. His gaze seemed to fall on the cigarette in my fingertips. Since I was in a good mood and wanted to do a good deed for the day, gave him two. He thanked me and took one to smoke. Seeing that he spoke normally, I chatted with him for a bit. He said he was a medium. Back then, the police specifically sought him out as a consultant. With his help, they solved hundreds of cases. They arrested dozens of murderers. But then something happened that ruined his credibility. He ended up in such a miserable state. I suspect he's a fraud. Or that he's mentally unstable. Are you just giving a perfunctory answer? Are you going to tell the police something like the killer is related to the number 3? And then have them run around like headless chickens, hoping for a lucky break? The old man wasn't angered by my words. He said people who say things like that are liars. Didn't he understand prophecies and didn't have clairvoyance? The only skill he had was the ability to see ghosts one by one. The old man asked me, "Have you ever heard of the truck body case from over 40 years ago? The murderer in that case was the victim's boss." If I hadn't seen the victim's ghost standing behind the boss at the time, full of resentment, pointing at him, the police wouldn't have found the real culprit. I have indeed heard of that case. Rumor has it that the police were able to solve the case thanks to a consultant. I don't know the details. I asked the old man, puzzled, "If you are a truly skilled medium, how could you end up in such a situation?" He sighed and shook his head, saying, 30 years ago, there was a case called the Engineer's Mansion murder case. The engineer and his wife lived in a mansion in the Southern District. One day, the wife was found by a part-time maid in their home. She had been stabbed multiple times and was lying in a pool of blood. Because there was a theft in the mansion, the police concluded that the thief had committed murder. Later, I was invited to assist in the investigation. I found the wife's ghost standing behind the engineer. She looked like she was about to die. She kept pointing at her husband. I asked the wife where the weapon that killed her was. She pointed it out to me. I finally found the blood-stained kitchen knife in a hidden compartment in the warehouse shed. The engineer's fingerprints were on the handle. I asked the old man why he killed him. The police investigation later revealed that the couple had a troubled relationship. The wife was jealous. The engineer was handsome and often flirted with other women. Outsiders thought they were a model couple. In reality, they argued frequently at home. At its worst, it even involved punching, kicking, and wielding knives and guns. When the news of the engineer's arrest broke, his female secretary voluntarily turned herself and admitted she was the mistress. She was afraid of being mistaken as an accomplice. Small. In the end, the engineer was sentenced to death. Back then, the efficiency was much higher than it is now. The entire case was concluded in less than a year. Just 6 months later, the death sentence was carried out. If only the efficiency back then had been a little lower. Less than 3 months after the execution, the case was overturned. The real killer was that maid. She was a habitual thief. She took advantage of her position to steal from her employer. On the day of the incident, she was caught by the engineer's wife while she was stealing. She just killed her to silence her. The engineer's wife was usually overbearing towards the maid. To vent her anger, the maid stabbed her more than 10 times. Later, she tried the same trick again, but was caught by her new employer. Only this time she was too careless. She didn't strike hard enough, thinking the other person had already died. This woman was foolish enough to think that confessing more would lessen her sentence. So she told the police the truth about the engineer's case. Honestly, it's fine if she's unlucky, but why does she have to drag me down with her? So your superpower is just an illusion, right? You still don't get it. What ghosts say isn't necessarily the truth. For her, compared to bringing the killer who murdered her to justice, She cares more about whether her husband will be with the mistress and replace her as the first wife. I was there the day the engineer was executed. At that time, my wife's ghost had a smiling expression on her face. I thought it was the joy of having her injustice cleared. I was stunned, looking at the old man, half believing and half doubting. The ending of this story is so vicious. Maybe it's all just nonsense from the old man. After finishing his cigarette, the old man stood up to leave. Before leaving, he said to me, "Thanks for the cigarette, kid. It was nice talking to you. People can't be trusted, and neither can ghosts." Once I understood that, I stopped making random judgments. The old man took a few steps, then turned around, looking touched, and said, "So even if there's a whole crowd of ghosts standing behind you, I won't make wild guesses about your relationship with them. It's just..." That fat man, blind in his left eye, looked like he wanted to tear me to pieces. A chill ran down my spine, and I quickly turned around, but there was nothing behind me. When I turned back, the old man was already far away. Although I really wanted to chase after him, those words paralyzed me. I could only sit there, frozen. I just finished a job. I solved a problem for a client, a banker. The guy was a fatso. I shot him, blew his head off. The bullet went in through his left eye. Senior brother, tonight was terrifying. Please let me fall asleep quickly. Stop being suspicious. Faxon. Let's go check the Great Hall again tonight. But Master, now. Haha, are you afraid? All right, then I'll go with you. Preparing to worship Buddha Faxon. We've got quite a few guests seeking shelter from the rain tonight. Forbidden. If only Lying Shun were here too. Master and senior brother have been dead for a year now. What a good child Haodua was. So pure and kind-hearted. How could the Buddha bear to watch him slowly die from his illness? So, Faxon, there is something I must tell you. Lying Shun was actually murdered by someone. Master, what are you talking about? Don't speak nonsense in front of the Buddha. It was only recently that I deduced this terrifying truth. Lying Shun was killed by a freak from our temple. Master, are you serious? But why? Once, a strange monk came to our temple. That was more than a decade ago. At first, he performed the rituals with us sincerely. He cremated the deceased's body. But as he smelled the burning bodies more and more, he found it harder and harder to control himself. He said he had fallen in love with that smell. When he inhaled it, it felt like falling into paradise, his whole body at ease. When he couldn't smell it, it was as if his heart was being torn apart. I can't help but want to smell it again. But what could he do about it? The smell of burning human flesh can't be replaced by any other kind of meat. I guess the one who killed Liang Shun was probably him, someone desperate to satisfy his desires. Master, this is too terrifying. Based on my guess, this demon probably poisoned Liang Shun when he was ill. He killed him without leaving a trace. Before the cremation ceremony, he cut off all his flesh. Of course, none of this could be known to others. But how would he preserve all that flesh? Master, please stop guessing. If I were that demon, I would render the fat from the flesh, make oil and turn it into candles. As long as I light one in front of the Buddha every morning and evening, I can smell the scent of human flesh every day. It's so natural that no one would suspect it. I could keep enjoying it forever. But Fexin, do you know? Human oil candles are, after all, finite. This lamp is already running on the last bit of oil. So, can you understand the frustration and unease I've been feeling these past few days? Master, if I don't think of a solution soon, I won't be able to go on. Faxin, you don't know? I'm so worried that I can't even eat. It's too late for you to leave now, on a stormy day like this. No one will hear you. Master, please spare me, I don't want to die. Please, at this point. No matter how much you beg, it won't make a difference. Master, accumulate good deeds in front of the Buddha. I really don't want to die. You really don't want to die? Yes. All right, then I will spare you. But you have to listen to me, whatever I say. You must do. I will listen to you. Are you sure? I'm sure. Then help me kill someone. Ah. If I don't kill you, I'll have to kill someone else. You want to help me? This. You don't want to do it. No, Master. I'll do anything for you, anything. Do you really want to help me? Yes. Good. Kill now. Now who should we kill? Kill the Buddha. Oh, of course not. It's the thief hiding behind the Buddha statue that we're after. Master, he... Forget it. Let the one who escaped go. Master, did you notice the thief when you came in? Then what you just said, it's all made up. With just the two of us, we probably couldn't defeat him. So I had to make up a story to scare him off. Sorry, Faxi, you see? This is just an ordinary candle. Lying Shun really did die from illness. It scared you, right? But you mustn't develop paranoia. But... Okay, forget about tonight. Go to bed. We'll deal with it later. Kiko. Every morning at 10 o'clock, I see my husband off to work. Then I return to my study. Today, I will start writing a long article. It is for the summer special issue of K Magazine. My mailbox. It's been filled with letters from admirers almost every day. They express their deep love and admiration for me. Although most of these letters are similar and lack novelty, I respond out of courtesy. I read every letter carefully. I appreciate the attention and affection from strangers. This unusually heavy envelope in my hand today particularly caught my attention. This isn't common, because I often receive unsolicited manuscripts. But curiosity prompted me to open it quickly. I wanted to see what the title was. Please be patient with me. In the past few months, I have felt like a true demon, hiding from the world. No one knew what I had done. I may never return to a normal life. But recently inside me, some indescribable changes have occurred. I feel I must repent for everything I have done, no matter what. Although these words alone may make it difficult for you to understand my feelings, I sincerely ask that you please read this letter in its entirety. You will come to understand why I ended up in this situation. You will also understand why I desperately want you to hear my regret. Where should I begin? This is all too incredible. I am an unattractive man, but within me burns a fiery passion. This is something no one knows. I wasn't born into a wealthy family, nor do I possess any special talents. I am just the son of an ordinary furniture craftsman. Nevertheless, skills in making chairs have earned people's recognition. The chairs I make satisfy even the most discerning clients. This has given me a sense of being somewhat like an artist in my work, the joy of completing a masterpiece. Although my appearance is not beautiful, my craftsmanship has earned respect. I always receive the highest level of orders. Every time I finish a chair, I feel an indescribable emptiness. This heavy emotion gradually intensifies with the passage of time. It was almost unbearable for me. Sometimes I even seriously considered that instead of continuing this hopeless life, it would be better to end everything. But every time this thought crossed my mind, I would always stop. I would reflect deeply to see if there was another solution. Recently, I received a special order from a restaurant in City I operated by foreigners. They asked me to create a batch of large leather armchairs, which I had never attempted before. It was a rare opportunity, so I gave it my all. to ensure every chair was perfect. The finished chairs were not only visually appealing, but also unbelievably comfortable to sit in. It felt like the perfect embodiment of comfort. I was immersed in this sense of accomplishment, began to fantasize. If possible, I even hoped to travel the world with these chairs. Around the world. This thought grew stronger and stronger. Finally, I even started to devise a secret plan. Turning a chair into a space that can hide a person. Although this idea sounds crazy, it really intrigued me. I carefully transformed this chair from the outside. It looks no different from any other chair. But its interior, it was cleverly designed as a space that could hide a person. At the bottom and back of the chair, I cleverly designed some almost invisible ventilation holes to ensure that it was both well ventilated and that sounds from outside could be heard inside. On the inside of the backrest, I installed a hidden storage shelf. It contains a water bottle, dry food, and other survival essentials. After such modifications, this chair is not only indistinguishable from an ordinary chair in appearance, but also, when necessary, can provide a safe hiding place. It can support one person to stay safely inside for several days. This is not just a chair. It feels more like a moving single room. I am only wearing a shirt. I hurriedly opened the secret hatch at the bottom of the chair. I crawled into my hiding place. It was pitch black inside. The air was thin. It felt like stepping into a tomb. This is my invisibility cloak. Then it drilled in. It was as if it had disappeared from this world. Soon the boss sent some workers. They began to move this armchair. My apprentice, he lives in the same place as I do, yet he had no idea. Still chatting with the workers. While moving, a worker complained that the chair was unusually heavy. I felt a tightness in my chest. But fortunately, they didn't think much of it. After all, the Fusho chair is naturally heavy. After the car started, the bumps in the carriage created a strange sensation. Door. My heart ace? Door. I don't know what will happen next. But unexpectedly, the armchair was quickly placed in a common rest area of the restaurant. It's bustling with people. For customers to wait, read newspapers, and smoke. My plan is to sneak out of the chair quietly when it's late at night, slipping out of the chair unnoticed, quietly steal inside the restaurant. Who would have thought that a seemingly ordinary chair could hide a person? If discovered, I just need to quickly return to my chair, like a hermit crab on the beach. I quickly hid myself in my shell. In the hotel, I was like a hermit crab on the beach, scurrying around the room. At the slightest sound, I would quickly hide, using a chair as my secret hiding place. By the third day at the hotel, my plan had been surprisingly successful. I made a huge profit. During the theft, the feeling of tension and excitement intertwining, and the indescribable joy when I successfully made off with it, made me incredibly excited. And watching people frantically search in front of me, yelling that I escaped over there, was both ridiculous and fascinating. It all held a strange fascination. I couldn't resist it. Soon after, I discovered a new thrill at the hotel. Far more exciting than stealing. It all began with a Westerner accidentally sitting on me. He suddenly sat down, his heavy body pressing down on my thighs. It feels as if our bodies are closely pressed together through that thin leather. Tightly fitting. His hips, firm and heavy. My thighs feel every subtle change in his body temperature. His shoulder pressed against my chest. His arm lay across the armrest of the chair, overlapping mine, heavy and warm. As he lit his cigar, a distinctly masculine scent wafted through the gaps in the leather. Spreading out, the experience filled me with an unprecedented excitement and satisfaction. It all began with that man. All kinds of people of various shapes and forms. gradually sat down on my chair. But no one realized that they weren't sitting on a soft cushion, but on my thigh. This experience was so absurd and bizarre that it filled me with extreme fear and cold sweat in the dark. My mind went blank. This confined space began to feel every person sitting on top of me with my skin. Some people have a full figure, giving me a soft, plush feeling. Some people are as thin as a rake, almost like sitting on a hard bone. I can recognize them by their posture, body weight, even the frequency of their breathing. In this strange world, beauty and ugliness no longer matter. There are only pure bodies, sounds, and smells. In this situation, I actually started to take an interest in the young woman sitting on top of me. Developed strong emotions. Every movement she made, every breath she took made my heart race. I felt utterly crushed and terrified. This pathological mentality and behavior has gone beyond what I can comprehend. One day, a young girl hummed a song cheerfully. She entered the room and sat down in the chair where I was hiding. Until that moment, women had always been unreachable to me. As a man who considered myself ugly, I never dared to look them in the eye, let alone interact with them. But now, this elegant young woman, she sat down on my lap like this. I could feel every movement of hers, every breath. She unintentionally entrusted her entire weight to me, showing a relaxation and freedom that only exist in absolute privacy. It was a kind of release that only happens in such moments. This experience excited me to the point of losing control. In this enclosed chair, for the first time, I experienced the joy of intimacy with a beautiful woman. Her presence, her every little movement, even her scent, deeply captivated me. Began to imagine what it would be like to continue living like this, experiencing this unique joy. No matter what happens in the outside world, I am willing to stay in this chair forever. Whenever night falls, I still move carefully in the restaurant. I make sure not to make any sound, although living in such a cramped space. With bent arms and knees, it causes pain and numbness in my body. But I'm still willing to put up with these inconveniences, just to continue experiencing those wonderful sensations. It's like being in love. I form a unique connection with everyone who sits in my chair. Some are as spirited as a pony, lean and firm of body. Others as alluring as a snake. The body is gel, and some are as smooth and round as a ball. The body is covered with thick fat and elastic flesh. Others are as solid and strong as Greek sculptures, possessing perfect muscles. Every woman, no matter her body shape, is defined by her physical charm and unique qualities. It has occupied a place in my heart. Although this experience is absurd, it is incredibly captivating. In this dark chair, I experienced a romance without sight or sound. This romance transcended appearance and words, immersing me in a completely different sensory world. Steaming, although my original plan was to commit theft, I found that I was more inclined to live here permanently. Continue exploring each unique physical and sensual romance. I can't help but feel that this person is utterly sleazy, but in order to experience this sensation, he's willing to stay in the same position for a long time, even if his body starts to go numb. He doesn't mind crawling out in the middle of the night, even if his whole body becomes numb and stiff, unable to walk. He still refuses to give up the experience of that sensation. At a press conference, an internationally renowned diplomat and poet sat in the chair I was avoiding. Although I could see him, I could feel every movement he made. Every time he gestured while speaking, his warm and strong muscles bulged under the leather. It gave me a strange sensation. In that moment, a crazy thought suddenly crossed my mind. What if I took a sharp knife from behind the chair and stabbed it into his heart? What would happen? This act would not only immediately end his life, but it could also trigger an international political crisis. It might even change the course of history. Just from one small action of mine, I could have such a huge impact. I felt an inexplicable sense of triumph and power. I suddenly realized that although I was hiding in this cramped space, I possessed the potential power to touch the world's pivotal points. This thought, though twisted, made me realize that even in the most hidden corners, it is also possible to possess the power to influence the world. I broke out in a cold sweat as I read this letter. This person is not just a pervert, he is also a mad. Damn, life is always full of uncertainties. Damn, a few months later, the owner of Juwo Hotel decided to return to their home country. Damn, Juwo Hotel was taken over by a Japanese company. Damn, and they plan to transform it into a more affordable inn. In this series of changes, the furniture that is no longer needed, for example, the chair I was hiding in, was sent to auction. When I heard this news, I was filled with disappointment and regret. Although during these past few months, I became infatuated with countless people from all over the world, I still felt mentally unsatisfied. Maybe people like me, a Japanese person, only the bond with my fellow countrymen is truly my homeland. So when my chair was auctioned off, and I began my life of displacement, I also started to look forward to a new beginning. Perhaps this time, it will be bought by a Japanese person and placed in a warm home. I will also have the opportunity, experience true love and a sense of belonging. This is not only my new hope, but also the reason I decided to stay at Y High School. My chair was sold not long after. What I feel lucky about is that the chair was bought by a high-ranking Japanese official. He lives in a city not far from Y City. I had a bumpy journey in the chair. From the second-hand dealer's shop to the official's house. 2. Persefef, despite the intense shaking throughout the journey, which caused me immense pain, the thought of being bought by the Japanese made all that suffering insignificant. The high official's house was a beautiful little Western-style building. My chair is placed in a spacious study. But rather than saying this chair is made for a high-ranking official, it's more accurate to say that he spends more time in the company of his young and beautiful wife. He works in the study almost every day, buried in his writing, and I'm right there in front of his desk. I can feel every time he sits down and stands up. The companionship of this heart makes me feel very content and excited. In the letter, I describe this experience as such, although it is a noble family. The one who primarily uses this chair is his beautiful wife. She spends a lot of time every day, sitting in this chair. Her presence fills me with anticipation every day. The lady is so young and beautiful. I cannot put into words how deeply I love her. She is not only the first Japanese woman I have ever met, but also possesses a flawless figure. She made me experience the power of love for the first time, compared to those shallow encounters in the restaurant. The feelings she gives me are undoubtedly the most genuine and profound. I am not satisfied with merely observing in the dark and secretly caressing her. I long for him to know the secret hidden within this chair. I want her to feel my presence. I even fantasize about her responding to my feelings. But this desire comes with great risk. If I reveal the secret hidden in the chair to her, she may panic and be overwhelmed. She will tell her husband and the servants in the house. Not only will everything between us be destroyed, but I will also face legal consequences. Even so, I still struggle every day, thinking about how I can make her feel my love more clearly. This is a race against time. It's also a challenge to fate. Madam, you may have already sensed it. Then let me state it clearly. So, Mr. You bought my chair from the Japanese goods store in Y City. I haven't been able to suppress my admiration for you. I've been silently loving you. I hope to have a chance to express my feelings. Last night, I gathered all my courage and quietly left my home, just to write this letter. It is too dangerous to express my feelings to you face to face. I don't have enough courage to speak to you directly. As you read these words, I am hiding from afar, anxiously watching over your home. I look forward to your response. If you are willing to accept my request, even if it's just to offer a little comfort to an ugly person, please place a white handkerchief on the stone pot of the potted plant by the study window. This will be the signal I am waiting for. I will see it. I will come to visit like an ordinary guest. I will ring your doorbell. This is the only request of my life. I hope for your understanding and permission. My heart is filled with intense longing. Even if it's the first time, it could also be the last time, to truly communicate with you face to face about my feelings. Seeing this, I'm trembling all over. I'm sweating profusely. Madam. Respected Madam, please forgive my presumptuousness in writing to you so suddenly. Madam. Honorable, I have always been a loyal fan of your work. Guang, I truly admire your talent. Recently, I sent you a manuscript. This is a preliminary attempt of mine. I imagine you may have already read it. I'm very much looking forward to hearing your opinions and suggestions. Regarding the title of the work, I intentionally left it blank, hoping to gain inspiration from you. I've tentatively thought of a possible title, Human Chair. But I'm not sure if it's appropriate. I hope to learn and improve from this opportunity. Thank you for reading my work, and I eagerly await your guidance. Sincerely, I hope to learn and improve from this opportunity. Thank you again for your time. Any feedback would be greatly appreciated. Market. Currency. Coin. The work of Heng Beigong Dongli Zhengjian, the final case of the night. Police line do not cross, police line do not cross. My grandfather was a detective for 27 years. I grew up listening to the stories of him and his partner. When I was a child, grandfather would remove many unfriendly details for me, but as I grew older, more and more of the truth behind the stories began to surface. 2 years ago, grandfather fell ill. His health gradually declined, although he said he had already buried some cases deep in his memory. But grandpa's illness still became the catalyst for these stories. There are some cases I still can't make sense of. Grandpa told me last night that many memories kept him awake all night. He had gone through the case files countless times, but many of the unsolved cases still had no logical explanation. There was no way to start. Only now is he telling me about these cases, because he knows his time is running out. This is one of them. So I wrote down my grandfather's story. Below is my verbatim transcription of these cases. I only removed some irrelevant historical details. Cough. It was a murder case. At least that's what Olson and I thought at the time. You know Olson, right? My partner. It was a family called Nibber. The husband, Benjamin. The wife, Jennifer. They also had a 6-year-old daughter. Her name was Katie. It was a little after 6 a.m. Their neighbor went out to buy a newspaper. She saw that their front door was open. When she went to check, she found the wife's body. The neighbor immediately called 911. Then, we arrived at the crime scene. There are no signs of a struggle at the scene. There is no indication of anything that happened to the victim while they were alive. Even upon examining the body, there are no wounds, no fingerprints. It's very hard to believe. Her husband and daughter are now missing. While they were on their way to the crime scene, the walkie-talkie suddenly transmitted the news of her husband and daughter's disappearance, Part 2. Based on this, we deduced the husband may have The police searched the entire neighborhood. No one saw him. Including the neighbor who reads the newspaper at the front door every morning. No one heard any noises coming from their house during that time. The wife's body lay undisturbed in the kitchen. About a third of her upper body was directly under the table. But the autopsy revealed she had only been dead a short time. The police couldn't find a cause. She had always been a very healthy person. Doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, exercises regularly. It seems that every time she closes her eyes, she turns from a living person into a dead one. A soliine do not os police line do not crows. We searched the entire house. Then we went to the place where Benjamin worked. He was a supervisor at a lumber yard. According to his colleagues, he arrived at the lumberyard before 5 a.m. on the day of the incident. He got to the lumberyard before 5 a.m. Upon arrival, he immediately began making a wooden crate. He stayed in the office making the crate. He told his colleagues it was for his home. Another early shift foreman said he only finished half of it. Around 6:15 a.m. he said he was going to the restroom. That was the last time anyone saw him. No one saw him leave the company afterward. When we wanted to investigate the lumber yard further, I realized I had left my notebook at the crime scene. I saw the police transporting my wife's body. But as soon as I entered the door, the stench hit me like a heavy blow. It was the smell of a body that had been dug up but had been dead for a long time. It clearly couldn't have been the wife's. I asked a few officers still working in the room and the forensic expert what that smell was. They told me it was spolinanacrospotionacros. It was there just a few minutes before we returned. To put it bluntly, the smell was everywhere in the room. I had smelled a decomposing body before, but when time comes, it feels like every wall is coated with rot. Solik ein do not raw, so luffy ein do not raws. The strongest smell is coming from the attic. I had already searched the attic. I searched it myself no less than 5 times. I climbed the ladder. Olson climbed up to the attic with me. When I looked up, I saw something. A wooden box. Like a crate. The shape of the wooden box is somewhat like a rifle case. About 90 centimeters tall, 60 centimeters wide, 15 centimeters deep. The box was standing upright in the attic. Blood slowly seeped out from the cracks. We immediately called the photographer and everyone at the scene. They each did their jobs. Finally, they removed all the nails and opened the box. Benjamin, just like that, fell out. Imagine this person is about 1.8 meters tall, 90 kilograms, and they are placed into a 90*60*15 cm box, with their limbs awkwardly collapsed, and all their internal organs crushed, like wet, sticky fabric crumpled together. I don't know why the killer stuffed him inside. He was like a rectangular mass of flesh and blood. His eyeballs were gone. His skin had already taken on the color of a body that had been dead for about 2 weeks. This clearly doesn't make sense. Because his colleague had seen him at work that morning. He was still at work. We are standing in front of the scene. I wanted to find a reasonable explanation for the entire case. But suddenly, help me! A voice suddenly echoed in everyone's ears. It was the cry for help of a little girl. The other people in the house, as for me, I heard it from directly above my head. When I first heard that faint voice say, when I called for help, I looked up at the ceiling beam. Of course, she wasn't there. It was just my brain, reacting subconsciously to the victim's plea for help. Did you hear that? Where did you hear that from? Police line do not cross. Police line. displayed elsewhere in the cemetery. But a few weeks later, I can't remember the exact time, someone actually stole his urn. The urn was missing for 6 months. We received a call from the cemetery caretaker, Atsika. She was leaning against her own gravestone. She struck a relaxed pose. She was holding an urn wrapped in skin. Forensic identification confirmed it was a perfect match with her husband's DNA, since Benjamin was found in the box. The forensic team carefully reconstructed his body. There wasn't a single piece of skin missing. Do you remember what I told you before? When I found him, his skin had already changed color. The skin in the urn was preserved perfectly. And surprisingly, there were 3 eyeballs in his ashes. Only one of them is Benjamin. Even now, 24 years later, sometimes I can still hear that little girl calling. I don't think it's my memory or a mental lapse. Ask your grandmother. She heard it too. It was still the voice of that 6-year-old. I remember May 12th, 2007. When I went to buy a pizza, I saw that little girl. Katie Nebel. It's not that I saw her grown up. I saw a girl who looked very much like her as a child. I definitely saw her. She was standing outside the Walgreens next to my house, crying. I walked toward her. I can't explain how I felt at that moment. I felt like throwing up and was extremely, extremely scared. Even more terrified than I have ever been before. She was just like this. She stared at me intently and said, with that most familiar voice, "Save me, please." I kept staring at her, but then she inexplicably disappeared right before my eyes. She was just here a moment ago, but it could disappear in the next second. I thought I was going crazy. I was a little worried about my mental state, but about an hour after I got home, the phone rang. It was Olsen calling. We had been in touch for over 5 years, but that night, he called me. He said he saw Katie Nebel sitting on a bench at the bus stop, crying, but he'd moved out of the city a long time ago. The next day, Olsen killed himself. Oh. Not every story has a happy ending. If it did, there wouldn't be unresolved mysteries. I've handled many cases, but only the voice of that girl directly entered my life. Sometimes I lie on my side. She was facing away from your grandmother. The voice sounded as though it came directly from her mouth. We never found any trace of that girl again. Nothing was found. How did the police handle these cases? At least, for me, this is the worst. Sleep. I was bored and aimlessly scrolling through my phone that day, lazily sprawled on the sofa in a completely relaxed position. Then I suddenly discovered there is an unfamiliar game in the game folder. Clicking the icon reveals the game title. After clicking Start Game, a piece of text appears. There are 2 options below. Exit game. After reading the text, very confused. The cost of returning to the game. Could the phone explode or get infected with a virus? What does that mean? I started to quit the game. After I clicked Start, suddenly, the scene in my house turned into a mosaic. Then it restored in an instant. It felt like the game was rendering the scene. I thought I was just too tired. My eyes are blurry. Then the game starts with a rolling PP. It should be introducing the background of the game. This takes place in the 19th century. It's the story of an ordinary middle-class family in Boston. The husband is a businessman. He's easygoing, The wife is gentle and caring. They both really love animals. It's said that their relationship began because of this. They keep many animals at home. Among them, their favorite is a black cat. They both particularly love this black cat. They even named it Pluto. The black cat became a bridge in their relationship. Because they talked about Pluto, it became an important part of their lives. However, this joyful scene was shattered after the protagonist's business failed, and after he developed a drinking habit. He became irritable. After getting drunk, he started hitting his wife. He even began to abuse the black cat, Pluto. The black cat bit him in response. He became uncontrollably angry because of this. He gouged out the black cat's eyes with a knife. In the end, he hanged the black cat. It was hung from a tree in the backyard. Since then, strange things started happening in this house. After introducing the game's background, the game screen officially begins. The game features 3 2D hand-drawn style scenes, exploration and interaction in the Sichuan province. The game screen is split into upper and lower sections. The main screen is at the top, and the map and options are at the bottom. You can use your finger to control the protagonist's movement on the screen. The small map updates in real time to show the protagonist's location. It's very convenient. But on the small map, you often discover hidden gray maps. I once tried to find the population, but it seems there was no population in the game. Maybe special conditions are needed to get people. The game still has a certain level of difficulty. The sanity bar is very easy to drop. For example, when a rat suddenly pops up in the scene, or strange shadow phenomena, the ghost that suddenly passes by, will cause the protagonist to lose. Once their sanity drops to a certain point, they will fall into a bad ending. The protagonist will go insane. They will scream that the monster is in the room. It has returned from hell for revenge. Then they will start setting the house on fire. If the wife tries to stop them, she will be struck dead by an axe. In the end, he'll perish in the flames himself. I often die while playing. But the normal ending is very short. It takes about an hour to complete. But the completion rate is only 40%. So I can only replay it repeatedly to uncover more content within. I haven't seen the perfect ending yet. Most of them end with the protagonist's death. Some of the endings are quite terrifying upon reflection. For example, in one ending, because his wife misses Pluto, he has to agree. And his wife goes to a pet store to buy another black cat to replace Pluto. But the more the protagonist looks at that black cat, even that black cat had lost one of its eyes. Fear made him instinctively grab the axe, wanting to kill the black cat. His wife came over to stop him because he had drunk a lot of alcohol. In a slip of the hand, he ended up killing his wife to cover up the murder. He embedded his wife into the wall. But when the police came to check, a cat's meow came from inside the wall. When the police opened the wall, they found the wife had already decayed severely. A black cat was lying on her corpse. It was gnawing on her body. It turned out he had gotten drunk. In his daze, had also embedded the black cat into the wall. The black cat survived because of its wife's household registration. In the end, the protagonist was sentenced to hanging. He was hanged in the square. Like that. It was just like the black cat he had hanged. As I spent more time playing, I discovered many strange things about the game. At the top of the game, there is a black bar that keeps increasing. As the black bar increases, the game screen becomes darker and darker. The walls begin to see black stains. Even if death restarts, the black bar still continues to grow. My wife seems to be the only NPC in the game. I control the protagonist and talk to her. The phone keyboard pops up. I actually had to manually type to talk to her. Could it be that a chat to P is already being used in games? I tried talking to her, my wife, but after a few rounds, she wouldn't answer questions that seemed outside the game's scope. My wife said. She wouldn't answer them, my wife said. I guess there are some limitations, according to my wife, because it would ruin the game's immersion, my wife explained. Doesn't the A of the wife also have various limitations now? There are often ghosts appearing in the game. They appear and disappear. They drift unpredictably. But the game doesn't explain their origin. What's even stranger is, the ghosts are designed in a very modern way. Some of them are even wearing short sleeves, holding the phone. I remember this game's background is set in the 19th century. Was it purely to increase the difficulty? Did the designer just grab it randomly from the asset library? There's another strange thing. There's a toggle button on the game's minimap that can switch between two. It's a map that doesn't exist in the game. and the arrow representing the protagonist doesn't move with the protagonist. Until I wanted to get a glass of water from the kitchen and got up to move around. I noticed the arrow on the map had moved. I suddenly realized something. I walked back and forth in the room. The cursor is completely synchronized with my movements. I suddenly realized that this is the map of my home. The layout is exactly the same as my house. No wonder it looked so familiar when I first saw it, and this map also has many hidden spaces. I don't remember any such places at home. This is so strange. There's also a very eerie part at the end. I just always feel like there's something strange in the game. Maybe a monster or something else. Of course you'll ask, isn't it normal for horror games to have monsters? But I'm talking about something in the game, not in the game's content. Sometimes between scene transitions, something black suddenly runs to the back of the scene. There are many portraits in the game's scenes. When I pass by, I always feel that the eyes in those portraits are looking at me through the screen. Something is always wriggling in the black background of the inventory. Even the eye interface is distorted. As playtime increases, the black bars on the game screen get longer and longer. The scene in the game starts to ooze black liquid. The liquid even blocks the door. And in a certain place in the game, a sound begins to come out that resembles the crying of a child. But it's actually a cat's meow. I control the protagonist to follow the sound. The game has a sound locating system. When I walk on the correct path, the sound becomes louder. Otherwise, it will become smaller as the protagonist follows the sound. He will trigger the process of observing the environment with his left foot. His left foot discovers claw marks on the wooden furniture in the room. Animal hair is also found on the floor. Finally, the protagonist follows the sound to a wall in the room. At that moment, the cat's meows stopped. But I remembered which wall the sound had come from. As the protagonist approached that wall, a game option appeared. Should I knock on the wall? I chose to knock. The game played the sound of knocking on a wall. Dong dong. But then I suddenly realized that the sound of knocking on the wall was also coming from downstairs. I thought I had misheard it. I tried knocking in the game a few more times. Like this, when the game made the sound of knocking on the wall. The knocking sound from downstairs also occurred simultaneously, but it seems like there's a 1 to 2 second delay in the sound. I thought I heard it wrong. Could it be that someone's really knocking on the door? I was planning to go downstairs to check. During this time, I kept tapping the wall on my phone to determine the direction. The sound was coming from the study. It seemed certain it wasn't a knock. I opened the study door. I discovered the sound was coming from behind the cabinet. I moved the cabinet. I found a door inside. Strange, I don't remember installing a door here. I tried turning the door knob. It opened easily. It's dark inside. It feels bottomless. And it's very narrow. There's only one narrow opening. I remember it's right next to the study. Isn't that outdoors? How could there be such a space? I turned on my phone's flashlight. Slowly I reached in. At that moment I discovered the mini-map on my mobile game had changed. I had entered one of the game's hidden maps. I could never find the entrance to this map before. This feeling is like I've stepped right into the game world. There's a musty smell inside. It looks like it's inside the partition wall of a building. Am I inside the wall from the game that makes a cat-like sound? And at that moment, from the depths of the darkness, a cat's cry, similar to a child sobbing, echoed. I shone the light from my phone into the depths. I found a mass of something black wriggling. The moment I shone the light on it, suddenly that thing stood up. It became abnormally tall, and I could also see the details of that mass. It was a huge black mist in the shape of a black cat. One of its eyes was bleeding black blood. Its body kept changing shape. I was so scared I froze there. I had completely stopped thinking. At that moment, the black mist suddenly rushed toward me. For a brief moment, I felt as if it passed through or entered my body. When I snapped back to reality, I instinctively ran outside. Finally, I closed the door. Only then did I let out a sigh of relief. I was scared out of my wits. When I left the study and came downstairs to the living room, I noticed that the walls in the house were also leaking, something that looked like those black stains from the game, and the air was filled with the smell of mold and a strange, indescribable smell of decay. Feel like something's getting increasingly strange at home. It started just now. I feel like the atmosphere at home is off. It's too quiet. I remember my house is by the road. It can't be this quiet, and the view outside the window is just too strange. It seems like everything is frozen. There's not even a hint of wind. It's just like the textures in a video game. I originally planned to open the door and go outside, but I found that the door wouldn't open at all. The doorknob was like welded to the door. It wouldn't budge. I tried opening other doors, but no matter whether it's the back door, side door, or even the emergency exit, none of them would open. I felt an increasing sense of fear inside. I tried to open the window and climb out, but the window wouldn't budge at all. I grabbed a chair and smashed the window. The window made a sound like hitting a wall, and there wasn't even a single mark on it. This feeling is like a scene from some game I used to play. The windows and walls use the same collision system. Speaking of games, that reminds me of the opening line, "Life is like a game." Has it turned my whole house into part of the game, this blackened wall? And the monsters resemble the environment in the game. Is this the gameplay of this cursed game? The price is that you might really be killed by the monsters. I shifted my gaze to the phone. The black bar had grown a little longer. The environment in the game has also become darker. The black marks in the game scene look like twisted, wandering souls suffering in hell. The environment at home has also changed in sync with the game. If this bar finishes, what will happen? I don't know the answer, but I think it must be something terrifying. The game's introduction already mentioned it. There will be a price to pay. Calm down, I must stay calm. If all this is caused by this game, then the answer must also be in the game. I intend to thoroughly investigate this game. I opened the game. I checked each item in the inventory, character status, and finally the map, then the equipment slots. You can see there's an empty slot, following the usual tropes of horror games. This should be an item that greatly helps with game progression, since only one can be equipped. It further emphasizes the importance of this item. Perhaps this item. That is, why my progress is only at 40%. I started rummaging through the game. I found a lot of miscellaneous stuff, like newspapers, which I could use to understand some local news, and some bills. Broken letters. In the protagonist room, there are also some white scenes of the protagonist. Ever since I killed that beast, the house has felt strange. It always feels like there is something in the dark shadows. Sometimes, I often hear things knocking over in the house. Sometimes, I can hear the sound of a cat meowing from the second floor. Is that beast back from hell? Is it here for revenge? He wrote this in his diary. It seems like the protagonist's mental state is already a bit abnormal. Is it because of excessive drinking? Or is it the guilt of having killed that cat? At first, I wasn't sure where the key came from. I went upstairs and tried each room one by one. I found that none of them would open. At this moment, I suddenly remembered the description of the key in the inventory, dull and lackluster. Rusty. What could that be hinting at? I suddenly thought of something. Then I went down to the first floor. I saw a door next to the stairs on the first floor. This is the entrance to the basement. I approached and used the key. It made a click sound. Sure enough, this was the place. The basement was filled with a lot of clutter, some old broken furniture. There was a box inside that I could interact with. I collected it. I got a strange lantern inside. There's an item description inside. It's a piece of equipment. The lantern emitted a dim blue light, illuminating the game scene. And at that moment, a person suddenly appeared out of nowhere in the illuminated area. To be precise, half a person. It looked like she was split in half. Under the blue light, it looked very strange. Maybe the light made her appear. That sudden appearance almost scared me to death. I almost dropped my phone. This game's high-energy moments are so sudden, no warning whatsoever. That must be a ghost too. Luckily, I'm used to the ghosts in this game. I quickly calmed myself down. I tried to approach the ghost. I found that the ghost looked kind of familiar. Isn't that the protagonist's wife? I wanted to try talking to her, but to my surprise, she took the initiative and spoke to me first. According to her, she was originally the developer of this game. During the game's development, the game was invaded by evil spirits. She and the other developers were trapped in the game by the evil spirit's curse. She became an NPC in the game. Her body, she became an NPC in the game. Her body, others forever became wandering souls in the game. As for why she is only half a body. Because in the game, she is the character who often gets split in half. Then I asked her, why am I not trapped in the game? She said the curse takes effect bit by bit. You should also be affected by the game's curse. I thought about the strange things happening at home recently, and the fact that I am trapped at home. I felt a vague unease. Then, I specifically asked her how to break the friendship curse. She said she didn't know. Only half of her memory and will remained. She told me to ask her other half. Then, according to her, her other half is stuck somewhere. She marked her other half's location on the map for me. Then she also told me that her other half is rather shy, and that I'd need this lantern to find her. Asked why the game had such an item. It didn't seem to fit the game's theme. She said game needs some equipment to be fun. After leaving the basement, I zoomed in on the minimap. The ghost marked the protagonist's room. I was there just now, but didn't find anything. Maybe it's not visible to the naked eye. Let's try shining a light on it. Let's see what happens. I arrived at the door of the protagonist's bedroom. I found it blocked by something black. The door seemed to be stuck and wouldn't open. I tried using the lantern to shine on it. The black thing slowly became transparent and disappeared. After entering the protagonist's room, I shone the lantern around. When the light shone onto the center of the ceiling, I suddenly noticed, on the ceiling, a half-body slowly appearing, hanging from above. Is this the half-soul? Why does it look like it's stuck to the ceiling? How do I talk to her? It seems like there are no options. At this moment, while I was switching the mini-map, accidentally, I switched to the map of my real home. I found that there's a marker on the first floor hallway of my house. What does this mean? Could there be 3 souls? Is another one in my house? I followed the mini-map to the hallway, but I can't see anything. It's as quiet as a tomb here. And it's pitch black, so unreal. When did it get dark? I remember it was still bright just now. And it seems like all the lights here are broken. Is this the effect of the curse? There's nothing here at all. Do I need some kind of prop too? But I don't have a lantern in real life. I opened my equipment menu. I found a full screen button next to my equipment. After clicking it, the entire screen turned into a lantern. A faint blue light emanated from my phone screen. It's just like the lantern in the game. This game's connection to reality is quite ingenious. I used my phone to shine the light around the corridor. Soon I found a head on the ground. The head was rendered in a realistic style. It looked a bit terrifying. It was only half a bloody head. Its eyes were still moving. I had seen it in the game just now. The head of a half-body hanging from the ceiling. Is it right here? Could she be stuck between reality and the game? I will try talking to her. You are the other half of the developer's soul. That's right, it seems so. You've already spoken to the other half of my soul. Yes, I've probably learned a bit from her, but there are still many things I don't understand. So what do you want to know? How to break the curse of the game. First, you must achieve the perfect ending. Because after all, this is still a game. What is the perfect ending? The ending must allow the protagonist to survive, but it's not easy. Evil spirits will appear to stop you from achieving the perfect ending. He will set up obstacles in the middle. You must get through these levels to obtain the item for the perfect ending. Really, that really sounds like part of the game flow. Because this evil spirit has already become part of the game. It acts according to the game rules. It has already merged with the game's say and mechanics. What do you mean? Actually, the game you're playing right now was originally a text-based game. We later changed it into a puzzle game. But the original text interface is still there. When you talk to NPCs or ghosts, the pop-up dialog box is something left by the original system. This is based on artificial intelligence. Penay's text-based dialogue system. We combine tabletop repos with A. No matter what you input into the computer, it will provide a corresponding response. It's just like asking Chapped. But later that A system was possessed by an evil spirit. It turned into something we could no longer understand. It's the black monster you saw. And this vengeful spirit, in the form of a black cat, is perfectly integrated into the game's plot. Of course, the vengeful spirit is also affected by the game's rules. Part of it is originally based on the game's underlying A, so to escape its influence, you must achieve the perfect ending according to the game's rules. So that's how it is. But I've seen this evil spirit in real life. Do you know what our game is called? Isn't it just Black Cat? It's called the Cursed Game. Wait, what do you mean by that? That's right, our game is about playing a cursed game alone. A story of desperate escape. So we designed two games. One is the main game, what you consider home, a 3D realistic game. The other is the cursed game within the game, the one you're playing on your phone. Oh, so that's it, isn't it? Your soul is also trapped in the game by an evil spirit. We, the developers, are trapped in the mini-games inside the game. As for me, I'm stuck between the main game and the internal mini-games. This might be some sort of bug in the game. Although it's hard to believe, it still makes sense. Why are there so many things from the game appearing in my home? But how is this possible? This is my home. How could it be a game? Think carefully. Who are you and why are you here? Your memory has been affected by an evil spirit. And why do you think the sky darkens so quickly? Because this is game time. It's much faster than real time. Why am I here? Is my house really this big? Suddenly, many memories flash through my mind. A person with messy hair is sitting in front of a computer, cheap, dirty, and messy rental house. When you start to doubt, the evil spirit's influence on you weakens. Get the key item, achieve the perfect ending, and I can get rid of this predicament. Yes, but you have to hurry. The black bar is almost gone. What will happen when the black bar is gone? If there's a way. Memory 3. You must find the recorded day. 3 notebooks containing the protagonist and his wife's beautiful memories. Memory Diary 3. That is, the memories of love and warmth. Memory Diary 3. It will make the protagonist give up killing his wife. Memory Diary 3. But where do I find it? As a developer, I still don't want spoilers to affect players' gaming experience. So you still have to explore it yourself. The only hint I can give you is to study that lantern carefully. It will be a great help to your puzzle solving, still being mysterious at this point. After leaving the first floor, I open the equipment interface in the game. I touch the lantern. I notice there's a lever that can be moved. When I move the lever to the other side, I notice that some parts inside start to rotate. At this moment, the lantern light on the main screen of the game changes color. It turns yellow-green. What is the use of such a change? I tried shining the light around the game's scene. Then something magical happened. The objects that were illuminated turned semi-transparent. It felt like the transparency was set to 50%. And the mini-map seemed to become semi-transparent as well. The lower layer of the map and the upper layer of the map overlapped with each other. The hidden maps in my house seemed to overlap with each other and form 3 complete maps. In my understanding, hidden maps represent treasures. So, will these 3 notebooks be there? You can see where the population is. There are 2 in the game. There is 1 in my house. So, I just need to find them, right? I follow the map and search one by one. First, I search the 2 population areas in the game map. One is on the first floor. After removing the portrait, there is a hole behind it. Another population is inside the cupboard in my wife's room. After entering the 2 areas of 8 people, you will encounter obstacles from the shadow. The first place you climb into is into a very complex maze. You must navigate the maze before the shadow catches up to you. Take the diary. Then after the second person enters, it turns into a side-scrolling pixel game. It's an extremely difficult platforming game. I had to challenge platform jumps while being chased by a shadowy figure. After much hardship, I finally got 2 diaries. The last 2 were in a room on the second floor of my house. That room had somehow turned into a bottomless cliff. It seems the shadowy figure knows I have acrophobia, but I overcame the fear. In the end, I got the diary. Alright, I've now collected all 3 diaries. I should be able to achieve the perfect ending now. Map equipment. I can see that the black bar at the top of the game is almost full. Equipment settings. Looks like there isn't much time left. Equipment to settings. Map. Equipment. The game screen starts malfunctioning with glitched equipment setup. The wandering souls in the screen seem to be in a daze, as if they're stumbling. The equipment is malfunctioning, and the ghosts are gathering. The environment at home isn't much better. The table and chairs start glitching through the walls. The shadows on the wall are becoming more and more distinct. The moment arrives when the protagonist is about to kill his wife, recalling the diary entry 3. Just when I thought I was about to reach the perfect ending, suddenly, the space in the house twisted. It was as if something behind the space started to move. This wriggling thing quickly moved into the corner of my peripheral vision. I turned to look at it. I found that this thing moved in sync with my eyes. Once it reached the edge of my vision, that shadow popped out from there. Yeah, this guy always likes to hide behind the game screen, and inside the game's A. So the scene I saw earlier, the spatial distortion, was it because he was moving while hiding behind it? When I ran into him inside the wall earlier, had he already entered my line of sight? The evil spirit glanced at me, and then plunged into the phone's screen. At that moment, I saw the protagonist in the game surrounded by dark shadows, struggling in pain. Is it trying to personally kill the protagonist to achieve the bad ending of the game? What should I do? I don't have time to restart. The black bar is almost finished. Is there any way to stop it? At this moment, I noticed that after using these diaries, an option appeared under the inventory bar. Xiaozi, just as I was confused, the developer of that half-brain hedger suddenly appeared. I said, "Don't suddenly appear and scare me. How did you unlock it?" "I'm a developer. This is something I can do." I told you, the game's underlying system is a text-based game. Those 3 journals aren't just diaries. They read patches. What does that mean? As long as you apply the patch, the game will turn into its earliest version. This is one of our Easter eggs. You'll find out if you try it. I tried pressing this. Switch to classic mode. The game suddenly went black and restarted. The game title rose up from the bottom of the screen. I pressed continue game. After entering the game, I realized it turned into a text-based tabletop rock. The screen started displaying dialogue. "This is the text-based tabletop RPG you were talking about, right? Is it really this intelligent? Can I input anything?" "Yes, we've left a backdoor in the game. When you use the 3 diaries, the text input limit has been removed. Now the only limit is your imagination." This game is amazing, isn't it? This guy has a strange obsession with her game. Does she seem to enjoy everything that's happening? Then I continued playing the game. The shadow gathers again, preparing for its second attack. What will you do? But, since everyone can lose anyway, let's try something different. Let's try something different then. At this time, the protagonist takes a bottle of spinach from his suit, gulps it down in one go, becomes incredibly strong, and attacks the shadow. This shadow is a tough opponent. It seems the shadow isn't a pushover either. Typo. You dare laugh at me? That makes me so angry. This time I won't make a typo again. The core was hit, emitting a dazzling light, and the shadow was shattered, disappearing into the air. And at that moment, I suddenly realized the surroundings were becoming increasingly transparent. What's going on? Thank you for defeating the evil spirit. This way our souls can finally rest in peace. I woke up. Oh, right, I fell asleep while playing this game. This is a 3D game called Cursed Game. Its unique feature is the interactive gameplay with the mini-games inside the game. I opened the door and went out to the balcony. I stretched lazily. Sunshine, fresh air, and crowds of people.